Well, we're here in Buckner, North Carolina. We celebrated the opening of the Veterans Life Center. It's a project that I've been aware of for many, many years. John Turner came with a vision, and now we have a facility that will host 100 veterans, veterans who are struggling, some with behavioral health problems, others with just family or adjustment problems after service, invisible wounds of war. It will be available to men and women, and it's a first of a kind in the United States. And I have to thank my friend, he was my friend long before he was the Secretary of the VA. Robert Wilkie worked with me in my office for several years and then went on to the Department of Defense and now heads the VA. And he's been responsible for a transformation. It's amazing because we talked about all the stories of the problems that the VA had back when you and I were working together in the Senate office. And tell me a little bit about maybe what your first 90 days on the job were like. And tell me what state the VA was in then, and then tell me what state the VA's in now.
Well, thank you, Senator. And I said today that it's wonderful being back home in North Carolina, but it's also wonderful being with you. I was privileged to come out and return to politics with you. And I've always said I learned more from you than you could ever learn from me. And I thank you because I'm here because of you. And because, in part, of your dedication to the veterans of this state. But VA was in a great state of turmoil. Morale was low. It had been battered in the previous administration by scandal after scandal. And it required the calming of the institution, walking the post, talking to people, changing the command philosophy so that people at every level of the department felt that they had a say in how the department was being run. Growing up in a military family, having served in both the Navy and the Air Force, I take walking the post seriously. And as a result of that, people out in the field working for VA have been able to see VA leadership, been able to engage with them. And we just hit an all-time high in terms of trust and approval from the 9.5 million veterans whom we serve. We're sitting at 90%. 4 years ago, they were lucky to hit 52%. We have transformed. We have offered veterans for the first time complete choice. If they want to go into the private sector and we can't provide them the services they want, they're free to do that. But they're also voting with their feet. We set a record last year, 59.9 million appointments in VA. That's an all-time high. That's even higher than the appointments set in the aftermath of World War II when there were 15 million Americans who had demobilized. We're reforming. We're about to launch the electronic health record. So for the first time, we'll be able to dip into the DOD and look at an entire record of a veteran from the moment that American walked into the military entrance processing station. And people like my father will no longer have to carry around an 800-page paper record. So we have seen a transformation, and I think there are two statistics that I value the most. In the last administration, VA was always rated 17 out of 17 in terms of best places in government to work. In the last 2 years, we've reached number 6, and we're closing in on NASA. And the other statistic is that during this crisis, as the rest of America has been challenged by an epidemic the likes of which we have not seen since World War I, we have fewer requests for leave and fewer absences amongst our 400,000 employees than we did at this time last year. So people are proud to come to work. They're proud to carry on what I consider to be the most noble mission in government. And we have seen it, we've seen it work for the betterment of veterans across the country.
So when we worked together in the VA and we'd go to these hearings, you know who the usual suspects were. When we were just trying to solve the problem for veterans, to make sure that they could get an appointment as quickly as possible. If it couldn't be in a VA facility, then a doctor of their choice. How many times did we hear that those were all moves just to privatize the VA? Now, Do you believe that there would ever be a VA that wouldn't have a brick and mortar presence, that has more than the majority of the people working in the VA serving veterans or veterans themselves? I mean, does anyone really believe that that would be a good outcome and that we're all working hard for that?
Absolutely not. And you said on more than one occasion to those making the charge, the only way a VA will ever be privatized if you vote to privatize it. I've been privileged to present to the Congress in the last 2 years the two largest budgets in the history of this department. This one, $240 billion with over 400,000 employees. Now, only in Washington, D.C. can someone make the argument that a $240 billion budget with 400,000 employees and growing is the path to privatization. But what we've seen, though, is that now veterans are happy. They have two avenues for health. And one of the things that has changed is that we put them at the center of the decision-making process. We don't put the bureaucracy at the heart of what they need. If they tell us they want to do it, we'll do it. And this is primarily for rural America. You and I launched one of the most far-reaching and reformative projects in the history of VA right here in North Carolina, in Asheboro. The first time that a VA clinic has been built inside of a Walmart, so that we can better access rural veterans, so they can go into a Walmart, show their card, and they can talk to a VA doctor anywhere in the country. We don't force them and their families to travel hundreds of miles round trip with that expense. So a lot of the things that we have changed in VA, they had their beginnings here. And I said on many occasions, North Carolina is a state where you don't have to explain military service. 1 in 9 citizens is a veteran. And the most important military installations in the country are right here.
I'll tell you something that I think a lot of people don't realize is just how large VA is, the VA health system. Largest health system in the United States, I would guess the world. And I think there's muscle memory because of some of the problems of the past for them to think that the standard of care at the VA is lower than the standard of care at other large hospital systems. I know that's not true. In fact, I know that if we can turn to COVID, if you take a look at the way that you all have dealt with COVID, it's heartbreaking to think when COVID first came here, it attacked a lot of veterans' homes, it attacked a lot of older and at-risk population, and that unfortunately hit a lot of veterans. But I think your response has been extraordinary. As a matter of fact, at the opening of the Veterans Life Center, we had a gentleman come in and thank you for the work that you've done here in North Carolina for the veterans' homes. Eliminated any instances of COVID. You fought back. Tell us a little bit about what you've done in North Carolina and then maybe across the country.
Well, I'll start with the country first. We were the first healthcare system in the country to lock down our nursing homes. We have 134 nursing homes. We had to make very difficult decisions at the beginning. We had to cut off our veterans, the majority of whom in those homes are from World War II and Korea, from the sustenance of their families and friends at a particularly difficult time in their lives. But in so doing, we were able to protect them. As we speak, of our 7,500 veterans in nursing homes, 9 have tested positive for COVID. 9 in our facilities have COVID, and several of those we brought in from state veterans' homes. So it has been a success story, and we have shared those lessons learned with the rest of the country. State veterans' homes are separate from us by law. They serve a different purpose. They serve a cohort of veterans. But we were able, with our 4th mission, VA has 4 missions. The first is veterans' health. The second is veterans' benefits. The third is memorial affairs. And the 4th is to be the foundational response for the United States in terms of natural disasters, or in this case, epidemics. Most people usually see us after the hurricane, when we'll bring in mobile pharmacies and mobile clinics and mobile nutrition centers. But for this epidemic, we were able to deploy nurses across North Carolina into state veterans nursing homes in Kinston and Fayetteville and Salisbury and Black Mountain, to put in best practices, to share personal protective equipment, to make sure that veterans in the state homes were protected. I just came from the Commonwealth of Virginia, and our VA employees deployed to over 200 community nursing homes. When I hear people talk about PPE, they don't focus on other areas outside of VA. In Virginia, our people encountered state employees who were wearing garbage bags for personal protective equipment. That's what the state was providing. We've gone in and tried to make sure that things were in order to save lives.
I think you've done an amazing job. I can't imagine a better captain at the helm navigating this pandemic. It's probably the most significant stress that the VA's ever had to stand up to, and you've done a great job. Now let's talk about the Veterans Life Center.
Sure.
You know, this is almost a dozen years in the making, and John Turner, the board, have done a great job. The event that we participated in today was heartwarming, and I think that they're going to have their first patient come in on August the 18th. But this is really a first of a kind. What they're doing here, I think they can build a case to actually have a national network. If you think about people who come back, they transition to veteran status, they have invisible wounds of war, they've seen maybe one of their fellow soldiers or Marines die in combat, and then they struggle. This Veterans Life Center is going to give them something that gives them a new mission, something that allows them to go back and hopefully recover from their wounds, bring families back together, and get them on sound footing for the future. How important do you think something like this is for the future of serving our veterans?
Well, it's vital. And I start from a different perspective than most Americans, because the experiences of growing up in the home of a combat soldier from Vietnam have seared my memory. My father was grievously wounded in Cambodia, spent a year in an Army hospital, was allowed to recover for 3 years before going back to Fort Bragg. And the other part of this story, this memory, is not so much the effects of wounds on a huge man. He came back weighing half of what he did when he went. But what happened once he got back. As a senior officer in the 82nd Airborne Division, he was not allowed to wear his uniform off post. And you can only imagine what was happening to thousands of other Vietnam veterans who were similarly treated across the country. If you look at our suicide numbers, the vast majority of the 20 who sadly take their lives by suicide every day, they're from Vietnam. What this represents is what we should have done 40 years ago. Bring together the community, to tell people that service is noble, and that we are here not only to help you with vocational education or physical rehabilitation, but to help you in your spiritual journey, and to say thank you on behalf of a grateful community. The beauty of it here in North Carolina is that this is the most military-friendly state in this nation. I said today, the most important road in America is right there in North Carolina, Highway 24, connects Fort Bragg and the paratroopers and the airborne and special operations community with 40% of the Marine Corps. No other state has a legacy like that. And you see that in the number of veterans who are here. 1 in 9 citizens is a veteran. That population is exploding, but they're coming here because they know that the community understands what they've been through. And this is a manifestation.
Well, I want to thank Director Seekins and the VA for all the help that they provided and the help they'll provide in the future, and all the people in the community, the donors, the volunteers, the board members, everybody that made this possible. I believe it's going to save lives, and it's great to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your, and I should have mentioned to begin with, thank you for your service, past and present, as member of the Air Force, a member of the Navy, one who served in the administration, one who went on to the DOD, and now heading up the VA. I can't imagine a better person in the job.
Well, I can never thank you enough. I had stopped my public service. I was off to do other things, and you called. And I knew what you'd done here in North Carolina in the House. I knew how you transformed government. And I wanted to be a part of that team. And I've always said, and I said it here today, you asked me to come to help you with veterans and help you with the military. But I learned more from you than you could ever learn from me. And I'm sitting here because of your vision and leadership. And my home state is proud to have you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.